Imagine being 22 years old. You're sitting in a thin aluminum tube at 25,000 feet. It's minus 40 degrees outside and there are 10 of you crammed in together. And every single one of you knows the statistics. The chance of completing your 25 mission tour are just 25% only. German fighters are waiting and they know you're coming. The flak gunners below have already done the math. And somewhere on a piece of paper back at base, someone has quietly noted that more than 1 in 3 of these planes will never come home. Welcome to the most dangerous job in the Second World War. Welcome to the Bomber War. Let's start with Germany because they were the first to really put this theory to the test, and their experiences offer valuable lessons. The German Air Force went to war with a pair of workhorses that looked impressive on paper, the Heinkel He 111 and the Junkers Ju 88. Medium bombers, twin-engined, and honestly pretty fast for their time. The Heinkel contributed significantly to campaigns including the Battle of France, the Battle of Britain, and the London Blitz, and for a while it was genuinely terrifying. Its distinctive greenhouse nose, all glass panels and sinister curves, became one of the defining visual symbols of Nazi air power. But here's the problem. Hitler and Goering had crafted a tactical air force. Their planes existed to back up fast-moving ground troops, the whole blitzkrieg idea. They built an air force for close support, not one with an independent strategic bombing mission. That approach worked beautifully in Poland. It crushed France. But when the Luftwaffe turned to the Battle of Britain, a drawn-out campaign against a country that wasn't exactly on its last legs, the limitations hit like a brick wall. On a Heinkel He 111, they can carry about 4,400 pounds of bombs. That sounds like a lot until you realize the Lancaster would eventually carry 14 times that. The German bombers didn't have the range. They couldn't bring escorts deep into Britain, and their defenses just weren't up to the task. British radar and fighter cover chewed them up. When we look at the numbers, between July and October 1940, the Luftwaffe lost 303 Ju 88 bombers, which was 15% of their total aircraft losses during that period. Goering's campaign was completely doomed. The Battle of Britain ended in defeat for Germany. The Blitz that followed, with its relentless pounding of British cities, killed tens of thousands, but it didn't break British spirit. If anything, it made people more stubborn. And here's the darkly ironic footnote from 2026. Germany's bombing campaign, meant to force Britain to surrender, did the exact opposite. It practically guaranteed that Britain would go all in on building the most powerful strategic bombing fleet in history. Hermann Goering did not count for this for sure. And you can't talk about German bombing without mentioning the Ju 87 Stuka, which was a beauty with its fixed landing gear and its crazy dive sirens shrieking just to terrify anyone below. It was bold, and it actually worked, until those planes had to face real fighter opposition. Turns out, a slow dive bomber with barely any defensive firepower didn't last long. Then there's the Heinkel He 177, Germany's attempt at a strategic bomber. Goering insisted even this 4-engine beast should dive bomb, because apparently every German bomber had to double as a dive bomber, no matter how nonsensical that was. In the end, Germany never built a proper heavy strategic bomber, and honestly, that single decision might have cost them the war. Now let's talk about Britain. The Avro Lancaster is, by any measure, one of the greatest aircraft ever built. With a wingspan of 102 feet and 4 Rolls-Royce Merlin V12 engines, and a bomb load so heavy it just about matched its own weight. Nothing else in the European theater really stood up to it. Britain and Canada churned out over 7,000 of these giants, and with a range of over 2,500 miles, depending on what it was hauling, they could strike deep and hard. RAF Bomber Command, under the relentless Air Chief Marshal Arthur Harris, a man so committed to bombing Germany that his own nickname was Bomber Harris, flew the Lancaster on an extraordinary campaign of night area bombing. Harris believed in hitting Germany fast and hard, but now with delicate daylight precision missions. Too risky for him. Instead, Harris sent waves of Lancasters into the night, aiming for entire cities. not just factories. Of the Bomber Command's 120,000 aircrew, 55,573 were killed over Nazi-occupied Europe. Just over 44%, which is nearly a 50-50 chance you will make it back home. On average, a Lancaster only survived 21 missions before it was lost. But the Lancaster wasn't just about destruction. Its most famous mission happened in May 1943 with 617 Squadron led by Wing Commander Guy Gibson. 19 specially modified Lancasters attacked the Ruhr dams with Barnes-Wallis's wild bouncing bomb, skipping across the water like stone. The raid smashed the dams and boosted Wallis's earthquake bombing ideas that caused enormous damage to German infrastructure in the later stages of the war. Then Dresden happened. In 4 raids between 13 and 15 February 1945, just 3 months before Germany surrendered, 770 heavy bombers of the Royal Air Forces and 527 of the United States Army Air Forces dropped more than 3,900 tons of high-explosive bombs and incendiary devices on the German city of Dresden. 25,000 people died. 13 square miles of the city gone, reduced to rubble and flames. Churchill himself authorized raids, but backed away almost instantly as controversy erupted. And even now in 2026, Dresden remains the most contested moral question of the entire bomber war. Was it a military target, an essential railway hub for the Eastern Front, or was it just a beautiful city being destroyed for no real reason at the end? Now for the Americans, and arguably the most dramatic chapter of the entire bomber war. The US Army Air Forces landed in Britain convinced they had the answer: daylight precision bombing. The plan was simple, at least in theory. Fly high, use the Norden bomb site, which they treated like a secret weapon, and only hit factories, railways, and anything feeding the German war machine. And civilian casualties? The Americans wanted to avoid those at all costs. The aircraft they brought with them were magnificent. The B-17 Flying Fortress, bristling with machine guns, capable of absorbing extraordinary punishment and still flying home. The definitive B-17G model carried no fewer than 13 machine guns on it, including 2 in a new front turret for defense against head-on attack, operated by a crew of 10. Then there was the B-24 Liberator. Not as legendary, struggled at the highest altitudes, but it made up for it with speed and could fly farther than the B-17. Later on in the Pacific, the Americans unleashed the B-29 Super Fortress, a whole new kind of terrifying. But the early American campaign over Germany was paid for in blood on a scale that shocked even hardened commanders. Imagine being in one of those B-17 crews. You had a 50-50 shot at making it home alive on any given mission. The average age of a bomber crew was just 25 years old, while the chance of surviving 25 missions, which was the required tour, was just 25%. Let that land for a moment. The missions went deep into Germany without fighter escort because the fighters simply didn't have the range to follow. The bombers flew on, basically exposed, straight into the teeth of German defenses. There's no sugarcoating for what happened on October 14, 1943, the Black Thursday. That day, 291 B-17s attacked the Schweinfurt ball bearing factories. 60 bombers were shot out of the sky, and 17 returned so broken they had to be scrapped. 121 others came back with fresh scars, and in total, over a quarter of the force was lost. Nearly 650 airmen gone in one mission. The 305th Bomb Group alone had 16 planes take off. 13 didn't return. The Americans officially acknowledged that it had, for the time being, lost air superiority over Germany. Deep raids were suspended. The problem was that precision bombing wasn't as precise as advertised. In the early parts of the war, some statistics suggest only 1 in 10 RAF bombers was getting within 5 miles of its target. The Americans had better bomb sights, but high-altitude bombing through clouds over a defended target is a considerably different proposition from a controlled test on a sunny day in Nevada. The serious effort by US strategic bomber forces to destroy the German aircraft industry only spurred the Germans to increase their rate of fighter production. This bombing venture was a complete failure, mostly for a lack of accuracy. And yet, here's the twist. Those raids weren't entirely wasted, because they did force the Luftwaffe to rise and fight. When the Americans finally got long-range P-51 Mustang escorts in early 1944, everything changed. The Luftwaffe took the bait, pounced on the bombers, and the new American escorts shot down Germany's best pilots, one after another. Air superiority shifted, not because of the bombers, but because their presence drew the enemy into the gun sights of the American fighters. So, by the end, the bombers became bait, incredibly brave and heartbreakingly expendable bait. And then there's the B-29 Superfortress. This was the plane that dropped the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, events that pretty much forced Japan to surrender. The B-29 wasn't just any bomber, it was the most advanced piston-engine bomber ever made, with pressurized cabins, remote-controlled gun turrets, and radar-guided bombing. It could fly higher and farther than anything else at the time. Under General Curtis LeMay, it was used in March 1945 to firebomb Tokyo at low altitude with incendiary bombs, killing an estimated 80,000 to 100,000 people in a single night, the deadliest conventional air raid in history. Then came August 6, 1945. A single B-29 named Enola Gay flew over Hiroshima and dropped one bomb. In that moment, the bomber became the most powerful weapon the world had ever seen. So what do we make of the bomber war? These bombing campaigns tore apart the Axis' factories and forced them to scramble, spending huge amounts on defense. But the price was unbelievable. Even now, out of the 12,731 B-17s built, 4,735 disappeared, either through crashes or enemy fire. That's more than a third gone. Tens of thousands of aircrew and hundreds of thousands of civilians caught underneath the falling bombs. And the crews flying these missions, most of them barely old enough to vote. Volunteers mostly. They climbed into those planes knowing exactly what might happen and just went for it, day after day, night after night. Fast forward to 2026 and things look totally different. We've got GPS-guided bombs that can hit a precise window and drones that keep crews safe. The mass bombing runs of the 1940s, which were terrifying, feel like a different world entirely. But those old campaigns made our world possible. Think about the Lancaster, the B-17, the B-29. They didn't just help win a war, they locked in the idea that air superiority decides the outcome, for better or worse. They weren't just airplanes, they were history, shaped out of aluminum and raw courage.